The road into Grim Hollow doesn't appear on most maps anymore, but that doesn't stop it from finding you. Travelers describe it differently. Some say it begins as a cracked ribbon of asphalt off a forgotten highway. Others swear it's nothing more than a dirt trail cutting through dead pine. Yet all agree on one thing. Once you notice it, you feel compelled to follow. It's always quieter there. No wind, no birds. Just the distant, rhythmic clanking, metal striking metal, echoing from somewhere deep beneath the earth. The first time Daniel Mercer drove into Grim Hollow, he didn't realize he had already passed the last turn back. He had been chasing a story, the kind that either makes a career or buries it. Former mining towns weren't unusual in Colorado, but Grim Hollow stood out. Founded in 1873 during a silver rush, it never officially closed. No evacuation records, no formal abandonment, just a slow disappearance from public consciousness like a word forgotten mid-sentence. And yet, someone was still filing tax records for it. That detail had caught Daniel's attention. Now, as his car rolled over the uneven road, tires crunching against gravel that looked more like crushed bone than stone, he felt a strange resistance in the air, as if the place itself was pressing back against his arrival. The town emerged without warning. No welcome sign, no clear boundary, just buildings, old wooden structures, hunched together like they were sharing a secret. Their windows were dark, but not empty. There was a weight behind them, something that made Daniel avoid looking too closely. He parked near what must have once been the main street. The silence wasn't total. Beneath it, subtle but persistent, was that same metallic rhythm. Clank, pause, clank. It didn't echo like a surface sound. It traveled upward, muffled, as though the ground itself was speaking. Daniel stepped out, his boots hitting dirt that felt softer than it should. He glanced down. For a moment he thought it moved. He told himself it was just loose soil. A figure appeared in the doorway of a nearby building. Daniel hadn't heard footsteps. No door creak. One moment the doorway was empty, the next it wasn't. The man standing there looked the first unsettling thing. In a place so worn and decayed, he seemed preserved. His clothes were old-fashioned miner's attire, but clean, not dusty, not worn. "Vister," the man said, his voice flat, as though stating an obvious fact rather than greeting him. Daniel raised a hand, forcing a casual smile. "Yeah, passing through. Didn't expect to find." "You didn't?" the man interrupted. "What's wrong there?" Daniel laughed lightly, but it didn't land. "Right. I stopped. Thought I'd take a look around." The man stepped forward into the muted light. His eyes were wrong, not in color or shape, but in stillness. They didn't flicker or adjust. They simply watched. "You came because it called," he said. Daniel felt a flicker of irritation. "Look, I'm a journalist. I heard about this place." "Yes," the man said again, as if that explained everything. Another figure appeared behind him, then another, not emerging from different buildings. Just there, as if the space filled itself when observed. Daniel's grip tightened around his camera strap. "Is there a town hall?" he asked, shifting tone, professional, grounded. "Someone in charge?" The first man tilted his head slightly, considering. "The town feeds itself," he said. "That is its governance." Daniel exhaled through his nose. "All right, I get it. Small town, don't like outsiders. That's fine. You're already inside," a woman's voice added. She stood to his left now. Close, too close. Daniel hadn't seen her approach. He turned slowly, forcing himself to stay composed. "Okay," he said. "So maybe you can tell me what's still operating here. Mining, tourism? Something must be generating income if taxes are being filed." At the word mining, something shifted in their expressions. Not emotion, recognition. "The mine," the first man said. Daniel nodded quickly, seizing on it. "Great. That's exactly what I'm here for. Is it still active?" A pause. Then, almost in unison, "Always." Metallic clanking seemed louder now, as if responding to the conversation. Daniel glanced toward the hills beyond the town. The mine entrance must be there, hidden among the jagged rock formations. He imagined old tunnels, rusted tracks, maybe a few stubborn locals still digging out whatever minerals remained. But something about the sound didn't match that image. It wasn't random. It had rhythm. Like chewing. He shook the thought away. "Can I see it?" he asked. The group exchanged no visible signals, yet their answer came as one, yes. They turned, moving down the street. Daniel hesitated only briefly before following. The town didn't feel abandoned as he walked through it. That was the unsettling part. There were no signs of decay in the usual sense. No collapsed roofs, no slittering glass in the ground. Everything was intact, just still, preserved in a state that suggested use without activity. Doors were slightly ajar, curtains drawn but not dusty. Tools leaned against walls as if recently set down, and always, beneath it all, that sound. Clank. Pause. Clank. As they reached the edge of town, the terrain shifted. The ground sloped upward toward a ridge of dark stone. The mine entrance came into view gradually, a wide, gaping mouth reinforced by heavy timber beams. But it wasn't dark inside. A dull, reddish glow pulsed from within, faint but unmistakable. Daniel slowed. "That's not standard lighting," he said. No one responded. They stopped a few feet from the entrance. The air here was warmer, damp, and the smell, Daniel's stomach tightened. It wasn't sulfur, not exactly. It was something organic, rotting but not decayed, like something that was in the process of being consumed. "You can go in," the woman said. Daniel looked at her. "Aren't you coming?" "We are already inside," she replied. The statement didn't make sense, but the way she said it made Daniel feel like he was the one failing to understand something obvious. He turned back to the mine. The clanking was louder now, closer. Each strike reverberated through the wooden supports, through the ground, up into his bones. He took a step forward, then another. The light inside shifted, pulsing slightly brighter, as if reacting to his movement. Behind him, the townspeople said nothing. He crossed the threshold. The temperature dropped instantly. The reddish glow came from deeper within, casting long, distorted shadows along the tunnel walls. The wooden beams creaked faintly, not from structural strain, but from something brushing against them. Something unseen. Daniel raised his camera, snapping a few shots. The flash illuminated the tunnel briefly, and in that split second he thought he saw movement along the walls, not insects, not shadows. Something embedded. He lowered the camera. "Hello," he called. His voice didn't echo properly. It was absorbed, swallowed by the space. Clank. Pause. Clank. He followed the sound. The tunnel sloped downward, the floor uneven but worn smooth in places, as if something heavy had passed over it repeatedly. The air grew thicker the deeper he went, each breath carrying that same unsettling scent. Then he saw it. At first it looked like a cluster of miners working in the dim light, figures hunched over, tools rising and falling in steady rhythm. Clank. Pause. Clank. But as Daniel stepped closer, the details unraveled. They weren't mining rock. The wall itself moved, not in large obvious shifts, but in subtle contractions. Muscle under skin, the rock pulsed, and the tools, rusted picks and hammers, weren't breaking it apart. They were feeding it. Each strike sank into the surface slightly, and when the tool withdrew, the material closed around the impact. Absorbing it, the figures didn't react to his presence. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "What the hell?" he whispered. One of the miners paused mid-strike. Slowly it turned. Its face was familiar, not because Daniel knew the person, but because it was too perfect, too unchanged. Like the man from the town, preserved beyond reason for the eyes. They weren't empty. They were focused, hungry. "The mine provides," the figure said, its voice layered as though multiple tones spoke at once. Daniel took a step back. "The town feeds the mine." Another added without turning. Clank. Pause. Clank. Daniel's mind raced, trying to rationalize what he was seeing. "This isn't possible," he said, more to himself than to them. The wall pulsed again, more visibly this time. A section near the miners bulged outward, then receded, leaving behind a dark, wet residue. The smell intensified. The hunger never ended. The first figure continued. So neither did we. Daniel turned, intending to leave, but the tunnel behind him seemed longer than before, darker. The entrance light was faint now, distant. Clank. Pause. Clank. The rhythm changed, faster, closer, and beneath it something else began to stir. A sound not of metal striking, but of something chewing. Daniel didn't remember deciding to run. His body made the choice before his mind could catch up, muscles tightening, lungs dragging in thick, sour air. as he stumbled backward through the tunnel. The reddish glow pulsed harder now, like a heartbeat quickening under stress. Niedman sound behind him, the wet, deliberate chewing, layered beneath the metallic rhythm, grew louder, more distinct, as if acknowledging his attempt to leave. Clank, pause, clank, no. Not a pause anymore. Clank, chew, clank, chew. The pattern had changed. Daniel glanced over his shoulder just once. That was enough. The figures he had seen, those miners, were no longer fixed in place. They hadn't dropped their tools. They hadn't broken rhythm. They were moving while continuing to strike, their bodies shifting forward in unnatural increments, each motion slightly out of sync with the last, like frames missing from a film. And the wall was following them. Not physically detaching, not peeling away, but extending, stretching in slow, deliberate pulses, as though the tunnel itself was growing in their direction. Toward him, Daniel pushed harder, boots slipping against the uneven ground. The tunnel should have been a straight path back to the entrance, but it wasn't behaving like one. The walls curved where he didn't remember curves. The ceiling dipped lower, forcing him to duck, then rose too high, swallowing the faint light ahead. "You entered," a voice echoed. Not from behind, not ahead, but from everywhere at once. Daniel clenched his jaw. "I'm leaving," he muttered, as if stating it could make it true. "The town feeds the mind," the voice replied, unchanged. "I'm not part of your town." A pause, not in the sound, but in the response. "Then you arrived." The implication settled heavily in his chest. Clank, chew, clank, chew. The ground beneath him shifted slightly, subtle, but enough to throw off his balance. He caught himself against the wall instinctively. That was a mistake. The surface wasn't solid. It yielded under his palm, not like loose soil, but like something dense and elastic, warm, alive. Daniel jerked his hand back with a sharp inhale. The spot where he had touched sank inward slightly, then returned to form, leaving behind a faint imprint. 5 shallow indentations that slowly filled themselves in. "You feel it," the voice said. Daniel backed away, shaking his head. No, this is some kind of gas leak or hallucination. The hunger recognizes you. "I'm not food," he snapped. Silence, then almost thoughtfully. "Not yet." The tunnel ahead flickered with dim light. The entrance, it had to be. Daniel forced himself forward again, ignoring the way the ground seemed to resist each step, as if gently pulling him back. The air grew marginally cooler, the oppressive scent thinning just enough to sharpen his thought. He could see daylight, now, or something close to it, pale, washed out, but real. He broke into a full sprint. The sound behind him surged, clank, clank, clank. Chew, not rhythmic anymore, not controlled. Hungry. Daniel didn't look back again. He focused only on the exit, on the faint outline of the wooden beams framing the tunnel's mouth. Each step felt heavier, like running through deep water, but he didn't slow. He crossed the threshold in a stagger, nearly collapsing as he stumbled out into open air. The silence hit him instantly. No clanking, no chewing, just stillness. Daniel dropped to his knees, dragging in breath after breath of cold, dry air. His lungs burned, his throat raw from whatever he'd inhaled down there. For several seconds, he couldn't bring himself to move. Then he turned. The mine entrance stood exactly as it had before. Dark, empty, no red glow, no movement, no sound. It looked normal. Daniel stared at it, waiting for something, anything. To confirm what he had just experienced, nothing came. "You saw it." The voice snapped him out of it. He turned sharply. The townspeople stood where he had left them, unmoved, unchanged, watching. Daniel pushed himself to his feet, unsteady, but alert. "That's not a mine," he said, his voice rough. "That's something else. You're feeding it." All of you. No one reacted with surprise. No denial. No defense, just acknowledgement. "Yes," the first man said. Daniel let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "And you're just fine with that?" A faint shift passed through them, not emotion but alignment, like a shared understanding tightening. "We continue," the woman said. "That's not an answer. It is the only one." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing a few steps before stopping himself. "People have to be going missing. Supplies, records. Someone would notice." "They did," another voice added. Daniel looked at the speaker. A younger man, though younger felt like the wrong word. His features were smooth, but his eyes held that same impossible stillness. And Daniel pressed. They stopped coming. The simplicity of it settled heavily. Daniel swallowed. So that's it. You just stay here, feeding that thing forever. The first man tilted his head slightly, mirroring their earlier gesture. Forever is a surface concept, he said. The hunger does not measure time the way you do. Daniel shook his head. No, there has to be a way out of this. You could leave. Collapse the entrance. Starve it. The reaction was immediate, not panic, not fear, correction. The hunger does not starve, the group said in unison. The ground beneath them gave a faint, almost imperceptible pulse. Daniel felt it through his boots, a reminder. It grows, the woman continued. It adapts. When the mine was first opened, it fed on what was brought to it. Silver, Daniel said automatically. A pause, then not only. Daniel's stomach tightened, and now he asked, quieter. The answer came from behind him. Now it feeds on what arrives. He turned slowly. A new figure stood near the edge of town, different, not preserved, not still, alive in a way the others weren't. A traveler, dust-covered, breathing hard, eyes wide with the same confusion Daniel must have worn when he first arrived. How long have I been driving? The man asked, his voice shaky. My GPS just cut out, and I ended up here. What is this place? Daniel stared at him. The realization hit with cold precision, the road. It didn't just lead here, it brought people, regularly. Enough to sustain, no. To grow, you need to leave, Daniel said quickly, stepping toward him. Right now, get back in your car and— You didn't pass through, the first man said again, louder this time. The traveler frowned. What? Daniel grabbed his arm. Don't listen to them, just go. The ground pulsed again. The traveler staggered slightly. What was that? Daniel's grip tightened. It's not safe. The town feeds the mine, the group said. The traveler pulled his arm free, unease creeping into his expression. Okay, this isn't funny. I'm leaving. He turned toward where the road should be. Daniel followed his gaze. There was no road, just a stretch of uneven ground leading into dense, unfamiliar trees. No, Daniel whispered. It was right there, the traveler insisted, spinning around. I just came from— You arrived, the woman said. The traveler backed away from them, breathing faster now. Stay away from me. Daniel stepped between them instinctively. Listen to me, he said, forcing calm into his voice. We can figure this out. There has to be a pattern, an X, something. The hunger expands, the first man said. Clank. The sound returned, faint, from beneath them. Clank. Daniel froze. The mine entrance behind him remained dark, silent. But the sound— it wasn't coming from there anymore. Clank. The ground near the center of town shifted just slightly, enough to notice. The traveler saw it too. What is that? No one answered. Clank. A thin crack appeared in the dirt, running like a vein across the street. Clank. It widened, the soil around it sank inward, not collapsing, but yielding, breathing. Daniel stepped back slowly. It's not contained, he said. The woman's gaze remained fixed on the shifting ground. It never was. Clank, chew. The sound was clearer now, closer than it had been even in the tunnel. The crack split further, branching, spreading beneath the buildings under their feet. The town wasn't built beside the mine, it was built on it. On top of it. Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears. You said you were already inside, he murmured, looking at them. Yes, the first man replied. The traveler shook his head frantically. No, no, no. This is him dipped. He stumbled, falling to one knee as the dirt softened, pulling slightly at his leg. Daniel lunged forward, grabbing him. Don't move. Too late. The surface gave way with a wet, tearing sound. Not a collapse, an opening. The traveler screamed as his legs sank deeper, the ground parting around it, not jagged or broken, but smooth, contracting, chewing. Daniel pulled with all his strength, but the resistance wasn't like weight. It was like suction, like something actively drawing him in. Help me, the traveler shouted, clawing at the ground. Daniel looked up at the townspeople. Do something! They didn't move. We are, the woman said. Clank, chew. The traveler's other leg slipped beneath the surfaces. His grip tightened on Daniel's arm, nails digging in. Don't let go. Please, Daniel strained, muscles burning, but the pull was too strong. Too deliberate. The ground rose slightly around the traveler's waist, enclosing him, not burying. Daniel's grip slipped. For a moment, their eyes locked. Then the traveler was gone, The surface sealed over him, smoothing out, leaving no trace. Silence returned. Daniel stared at the spot, chest heaving, hands trembling. "No," he said, barely audible. Behind him, the first man spoke. The hunger never ended. Clank. The sound came again, directly beneath Daniel's feet. He looked down. The ground shifted. And for the first time since he arrived, Daniel understood something with absolute clarity. The town had never been abandoned. It had been digested, slowly, continuously. And now it was his turn to remain.